Okay, so pathway to USA after MBBS. So my role today is basically to talk to you about how to progress to US after medical school graduation. We'll discuss about the different US prepping for residency application, the cost involved, just the general lifestyle in the US. And we'll also go over all the questions that you guys have towards the end. All right. So as you know, most of you may already know, I was told that we have a wide range of audience here from first years to final years. So some of you may already know this. We have different USMLE exams, right? So step one is basically the basic science, the first and second year subjects mostly. When I took the exam back in 2018, it was still scoring based system, but right now they have changed step one to a pass or fail exam. So that's something to take note of. And then we have the step two clinical knowledge exam, which is mostly the third year, fourth year, and fifth year subjects. That is still scoring based. And step two CS, which was the clinical skills exam, and that was mainly more like an OSCE that we used to do in med school. But that has been canceled since COVID, and they haven't brought it back actually. So that is still, out of the picture for now. And then step three is what usually we take during intern year of residency. All right, so these are just some resources that I use during my preparation for the exam, but there are various resources out there. Just to give you a little bit background about how I went through this. So when I was, in your shoes as medical student, a second year, third year, I knew I wanted to go to the US. Do training in the US. So then I reached out to some of my seniors. Some of you may know Dr. Desmond Kaur. I don't remember exactly which batch he was, but he was, I think, batch 20 something. So he was one of the first few ones from our med school to have gone through this pathway. And so when I reached out to him requesting, to give his experience on how he went through this whole pathway after med school, and from him I understood that there's this thing called Kaplan, and they do offer courses and all that. So that was what that's how I went through. So right after med school, I joined Kaplan. I took their classes, which is kind of helpful. But I didn't put it in here because I just wanted to verbalize it, but these are some resources that I would swear by, if you will. These resources up here is what I used, and I know most people use this, but again, like I said, there's various resources out there, to each their own. UWIL is definitely a must. This is basically it's a question bank. The closest to the exam, which would be UWIL question bank. So that is definitely a must to have and to work on. First aid, step one, is the Bible for USMLE step one. Step two, CK, not so much, but definitely for step one. I also used Bots and Beyond. Some of you may have heard of this resource as well. So basically, Bots and Beyond is a lecturer or professor. He's actually giving talks on all the topics that you're supposed to cover for step one. I think it's a very high yield resource. It can be a little bit pricey, but I'm not exactly sure what the price is right now, but definitely a very high yield resource for preparation for step one. And finally, just for microbiology, what I used was Sketchy. That kind of helped me, put all these bugs and all the diseases they cause in a very systematic way. So moving forward, other resources that you should be aware of, definitely look into ecfmg.org, because things change all the time. I know a lot of things have changed since COVID in regards to like registration for the exams and just ECFMG certification and all that. I may not be the most up-to-date person with these changes because I also did this about 5 years ago, back in 2018, where things were normal. Nothing, now everything has changed since COVID. So yeah, definitely look into ecfmg.org before you apply for the exams. Just look into, what are the requirements now. usmle.org for all, resource for all your step exams. And nbme.org. So NBME is basically National Board of Medical Examiners. So NBME is a very good resource to assess yourself when you're close to taking the exams. Okay, so NBME is basically what the local US graduates do in their med school before they take step exams. So they kind of assess themselves, they see what score they're getting, that kind of tells them where they stand. And it gives you, if let's say you're scoring like somewhere between 230s, plus minus 10, that's going to be your score for the exam. But that being said, it's not black and white like that, but it's a very good self-assessment tool before you take the exam. All right. So just to, I got this slides from online. I think it kind of comprises everything that we need to know. The sooner you start, the better. Now, as an international medical graduate, the most important thing is for you to have the interest and kind of have the timeline in your mind. Why I say that's important is because we don't want to be wasting time after graduation, trying to get a lot of things in order before you apply for residency, and we'll go over them one by one. So the sooner you start, the better. In my experience, what I did was I knew I wanted to, do the US training pathway in second year. So I approached a lot of people who did this pathway, got some insight from them. And so I got my Kaplan arranged right after graduation from med school. So we graduated in July. In August, I was already here. So I started off in Houston, Texas. That's where I lived for a couple of years before moving to St. Louis for residency. So yes, having an idea, a timeline on how you want to go about things is very important. So regardless if you're in first year or even final year, it's never too late. Just have that thought process in your mind going if this is your interest. So the sooner you start, the better. Obviously, the most important thing is going to be your step exams. That being said, it's not the only important thing for residency application. You'll have to work on your CV in general. And when I mean CV, other things that entails that's important for residency application would be like your letter of recommendations, your experiences, your US clinical experiences. Obviously your step exam, your step scores, your research, experiences, all these count into, residency application. That increases your chance of matching to begin with, okay? So besides the step exam, you'll have to focus on all these other things that I've mentioned to enhance your CV and to be a good applicant. So, like we spoke about step exams, the different, step exams. There are some of the resources that I've mentioned. So, you'll apply for the exam, you'll work on it. Step 1, you can take it in Malaysia. Actually, step 1 and step 2 CK, you can take it at a Prometric center in Malaysia. So the only step exam that you needed to come to the US for would be step 2 CS, which is now canceled, as well as step 3. You'll have to take it here. Otherwise, you can take the other exams in Malaysia itself. And then, once you have step in order, you have to start thinking about how to get this letter of recommendations, right? So US clinical experience is really big on the CV. It carries a lot of weight. And, most program directors, that's what they look for. They want to see you have some good experience in the US, especially coming as an international medical graduate. So how do you obtain a good rec letter? Now, there's various ways you could, get US clinical experiences. There are some, institutions or agencies that offer, they can connect you with a doctor who offers electives or observership opportunities to people who wants to take this pathway. You can go to that. That can be pricey. I am not 100% sure of the different agencies there are, because that's not what I did. The other way would be the traditional way, where you approach doctors yourself, right? You approach physicians yourself. And how you can do this is by, if you go into, websites of the hospital, any hospital, pick one, and you get on their website, just search, let's say, Department of Internal Medicine, do the search, and you'll have all these different professors, assistant professors who are on the department, right? And they have their email address in there. So you can directly send them an email, approach them, show them your interest, attach your CV. shoot them an email, say, you are so and so, and you would like to get US clinical experience, and if they would be willing to have you. And that was my strategy. That's what I did. Again, I had to send over 100 emails to get a couple replies, right? So it's really competitive. It's really a difficult a process, but you can get it done if you want to. So that's more of like a traditional path where you approach them yourself. Or you could even approach hospitals, like bigger hospitals, say Harvard, Yale, Columbia, the big timers. They actually offer observership program within the hospital itself. So you don't have to go through the hassle of approaching physicians themselves. You could just directly approach the hospital. They do charge a good amount for a 4-week rotation or so. You pay them, and then they connect you with the physicians, and yeah, that's another way you can go about it to get US clinical experiences. So like I said, there's various experiences. The best thing would be from word of mouth. If you know someone here, ask them, tell them this is what you want to do, and see if they can help you set up with any of the physicians that they know. That would be the easiest way, cost-saving way to go about US clinical experience. And once you get that, obviously you need good rec letter from the attending that you work with. And like I said, rec letters carry a lot of weight when it comes to residency application. Okay. So then moving forward from USC letter of recs, next would be your research experiences. Now, research experiences, it could either be basic science research or clinical research. Now, that really varies depending on the specialty that you're applying for. If you intend to apply for any surgical specialties, then research is heavy. Medical specialties, not so much, but you need to have some research background. Okay. And what I mean by research background, you don't have to be working in someone's lab for X number of years and produce papers and this and that. You can start now in med school, maybe case reports. You see an interesting case, you want to write up a report, you want to do a poster presentation. It all counts. So whatever you do through med school, the MSP that we do, so whatever you do in med school, all this counts towards you building your CV. So it's a small steps, and then obviously when you get a better opportunity, for example, if you somehow you get connected to some big research labs here, and you want to do a year of research, take a gap year or something like that, work on your CV, that's great. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that it doesn't necessarily need to be like a big research background that you need to have it. It's the small things that it counts. So definitely focus on that, starting now. So that's on research experience. And also, once you get, and right now, I know there's a lot of, uncertainties, especially with step 1 being pass or fail exam right now. When I did back in 2018, it was a scoring system. So, we kind of had a very, very laid out plan that if you scored from here to here, you'd be eligible for this to this, specialty trainings and so on and so forth, right? Definitely any surgical specialty, the score requirement is high, but like I said, score is not the only thing. There's so many other things that works along with score, like your letter of recommendation, your work experience, your research experience. All this counts. So it's not very black and white, but at least at that time we had scoring. Now that they've made it pass or fail, there's pros and cons to it, definitely. Obviously, because it's pass or fail, you're not really worried about the score that you need to get. You're more working on overall CV at this point, because when we had scoring system, when you had really good score, that really boosts your CV. But now the fact that it's pass or fail, you have to work on your CV overall, rather than just focusing on the step exam. So and the pros is that you're not worrying about getting a 250 or a 270. It doesn't matter, because it's a pass or fail exam. So there's some pros and cons. You just have to work around it. Step 2 clinical knowledge is still scoring based system, so you still have the opportunity to to shine over there. Yeah, so this is what you need to work on in terms of like residency application. There's few things you need to work on, and like I said, overall building overall CV matters. I can't reinforce this. This is really important to take note. And then as usual, the application season for residency usually starts in September of every year. So you would apply to all this, once you have done everything, you would apply for all these residency programs. Really depending on your interest. From the questions that I was just eyeballing earlier, there's some questions about surgical residency and how to go about this and etc. So we actually have a few Malaysians currently in the US who are doing surgical residencies. Actually a good amount. I'm in medical residency. I'm not on the surgical side, but if anyone is interested, do tell Dr. Som, and I can help you connect with these guys. And we have people in orthopedics, in ophthalmology. I was even surprised we had so many Malaysians here. But yes, we do. So if you're interested in surgical residency, let Dr. Som know. I'll try to connect you with them. They will be able to help you much better in those aspects though. And like I said, application is in September. You have to be ECFMG certified by then. And what it means to be ECFMG certified would be, obviously taking your step 1, step 2 CK, getting all your rec letters, just building on your CV. Okay, as long as you have those step exams 1 and 2 done, you will be ECFMG certified. As long as you're ECFMG certified, you can apply for residency in September. The interview season runs from October to late February. I think it's still online interviews for now. They haven't gone back to in person since COVID, so that's actually good. When I applied for residency, it was in person, so I had to travel to so many different states and pay for hotels, flights. It can get really expensive. Now that you could do it online, definitely you can save a lot of money, save time. So I think many people like that now, and they're still keeping it that way. So that's good. And then sometime in March, you will get to know where you match. And once you get your match results in June of that year, you would start your residency. Now, post-match, say if you applied, you did not match, there is a process called SOAP, a supplemental offer programs, where programs that don't complete their intakes, they have open spots, they would open up at that time, and you would know which programs are those, and you can personally apply to them and get interviews and so on and so forth. But yeah, so this is just a general idea of how the application cycle is for residency. And if you have any questions, just shoot in the text, or feel free to voice out. All right, so again, we kind of touched about this. What do you need the most to get a good residency position, right? Again, this is a little bit, I think this is back in 2020, I want to say. But again, so the most important thing at that time was step 1 score, but now that it's a pass-fail exam, so that doesn't count anymore. Obviously pass for the exam on your first attempt. And then the step 2 CK, the scoring system is still there. Your number of researchers, as you can see, US seniors as well as independent applicants. So for international medical graduates, you want to look under the independent applicants section, research experience. So those who matched had like 1.3, and then unmatched is 1.2, versus US graduates 2.2, 2.3. So having at least 1 to 2, that's bare minimum. Okay, the higher it is, of course, it's better. This is just to show you that it's not everything you need, but having good research experience, even the small ones like abstract presentations, case reports, all that counts. All right. And then under work experience, it's basically US clinical experience. That's what they're looking for. And then the volunteer experiences will be everything that we do in med school. We go to rural areas, clinic kesehatan, and all that stuff. Those things count. So you'll just have to kind of like fill in the blanks when you apply for a residency application. And when you're at that point, if at any point you need me to look over the CV or just give you a rough idea, I'm happy to do that. All right. So let's quickly touch base on the cost, right? I know that's a question for many people. It was a big question for me, going into this pathway. So like I said, I actually went through Kaplan. Kaplan, at that time, I took like a 3 or 4 month training course, just to, uh, mostly for no, I actually only took for step one. I did not take for step two CK. Yeah, so it was about like $5,000 just the cost itself, for 3 to 4 months course. I took that, and then it's very important to note that these exams, right, this USMLE exams can be costly. They are close to like thousand to $1,200 each exam. Now, don't quote me on that. Definitely check on usmle.org what the price is now. But just to give a rough idea, they can be in the thousands, each exam. Also, if you keep in mind, if you're coming to the US for some US clinical experiences, definitely your cost of living is going to incur, and that counts as well. So in my opinion, just in short, I think you should have at least 10K USD, kind of like planned out, in order for you to get through all the exams, your rotations, and so on and so forth. Like, again, this is just a rough number that I'm giving you. It's not the same for everyone. But when you're here, like I told you, we actually have I want to say a pretty good amount of doctors who are Malaysians, who are here currently in the US, all over the US. And if you need help to be connected, do reach out. We can connect you. You can stay with them, save cost. We can help each other out. So again, this can be expensive process, but just have the thought process on how you want to go about this. Just have them laid out early, okay? All right, so this was just roughly some things I wanted to touch on, but there's definitely more questions that I got from the registration link, so I will actually go ahead and address that, unless you guys have any more questions to be asked right now.
If anyone has questions, they can actually unmute and ask. Or if they feel you want to type in the chat box. I think, Felina, you can go ahead with the questions you have. They might be typing it during the process.
Yeah. Okay. So there's some 26 questions here, and we'll go over them. The first one is: competition getting fiercer in match these days? Again, this really depends on the specialty that you're applying for. And I will say yes, it is getting more competitive. There's more applicants, but again, the match rate is also higher every year. So what I'm speaking of is mostly internal medicine. So I think it's good, even though the competition is there are more spots opening up for residency. So as long, like I said, as long as you have your exams out of the way with good scores, pass, you have good CV, strong letter of recommendations, I think you're in a very good spot. Okay. And the other thing that I forgot to mention earlier, although it seems like you have to do all these different things to apply for residency, it is doable. I was able to do all of them in a year. I took all my exams, got my rotations, letter of recommendations, and all that within a year. So a year to two after your graduation, fully dedicated time, I think it's definitely doable within a couple years to apply for residency. Again, depending on what specialty you want to apply to, if you're interested in more of like a surgical specialty like neurosurgery, etc., obviously you will need that's a very research heavy training in the US, so you would need a very strong research background for that. So really depending on what specialty you want to apply to, but for mostly all medical specialties, what I can say is that the competition is definitely there, but the spots are also more, and the match rate is also getting more and more with each coming year. So I think that's good. Question 2, will the matching rate drop significantly for IMGs? Not really. In fact, like I said, the match rate is going up. So no, I don't think it's dropping. It's actually getting better. All right. So question 3, when does USMLE training start? Well, it starts when you want to start, right? It can start now if you're in first year. Well, great. First year, second year, so you can start working on your step 1 exam, because that's the closest to, right? Step 1 is mostly your basic science subjects. So if you're already doing that, obviously get those resources and work on it. The sooner you start, the better. Like me, I didn't start when I was in first year, second year. I just focused on med school, and right after med school is when I started everything. If that's the plan, it is definitely doable as well. Yeah, so it really depends on when you want to start. Question 4, how many residency programs did you apply to, and how hard was it to match? So I applied to roughly 150 programs. And for me, so the other thing that's also important, as I mentioned, for residency application, your step scores, your CV in general, right? The other thing that is important is your year of graduation. Now, after you graduate, you don't want to have a lot of gap in between, because you have to be accountable for your gap years. If you're doing something productive, like you're working in a lab, you're doing research, etc., you're doing MPH, whatever, that counts. But if you're doing nothing, you have to be accountable for those gaps, because they will ask you during your residency interviews. So keep that in mind. You don't want to go too long without anything that you're doing actively. So yes, I applied to 150 programs. And like I said, I was a fresh graduate in 2018, applied in 2019. I had decent scores, so it wasn't really hard to match. I mean, everybody has to go through the process, but it's definitely doable. I wouldn't say it's impossible. Okay. Question 5, is getting into surgical residency possible in the USA? Like I mentioned, definitely, it's possible. You just have to figure out what type of surgical residency that you want to get into. And I may not be the best person to speak more about surgical residencies, but I could definitely help you connect with someone who's already doing it. Question 6, how do you secure clinical rotations in the US? I think we went over this as well. Question 7, the resources used during the preparation for step 1, step 2. I went this over with you guys too. What I mentioned was the resources that I used, mostly first aid, UWorld, Bots and Beyond, and Sketchy for microbiology just specifically. But again, there's so many resources out there. Do read up on Reddits. They keep them updated. And you see what works best for you. But at least what I mentioned will be a good start. Question 8. How many years is the post-graduation in the US, and how does USMLE proceeds? So again, this depends on which specialty that you match in. For example, internal medicine is a 3-year residency program. Family medicine is a 3-year. Pediatrics is a 3-year program. Surgical residency, general surgery is a 5-year program. Orthopedics is, I want to say 5 or 6 years. Neurosurgery, that's 7. ONG is, I think, 4 or 5 years. So it really depends on what medical specialty, but on average, ranging between 3 to 7 years. That's why I would put it. All right. Question 9, what are the most significant challenges that graduates face when transitioning from an MBBS in Malaysia to a medical residency program in the United States? And how did you navigate these challenges? This is actually a great question. I felt like one of the biggest challenge was after med school was kind of going back to studying step 1. That was my biggest challenge, because I had done all this 5 years towards the end, and then I'll have to go back and study first year, second year stuff. That was a little bit challenging. That took a little bit of time, but again, with the right resources, with the right mindset, it's definitely doable. So I felt like that transition was a little rough, but people go through this all the time. A lot of people have gone through too, from Manipal, from our medical college, and also other medical colleges in Malaysia. So it's definitely doable. All right. 10 updates in USMLE. How to go to USA after getting degree while doing MBBS and MUCM. Whom to contact if you have questions. All right. We did talk about the cycle on how to go about it after your degree. Feel free to let Dr. Som know. He can connect you guys with me, or I can connect you guys to someone else who would be able to help you in if you have any specific training questions. But yeah, we are all here, so we actually a big community here, so feel free. Question 11, opportunities for international students, mainly Indian. So I'm not 100% sure what opportunities you mean here, but if you mean about just matching in general, like I said, there's more spots opening up every year. The match rate is going up every year, so I think it's looking good overall in regards to a match opportunity. Question 12, is it okay to take USMLE after graduation? Absolutely. That's what most of us did anyways. We all took it after graduation. Question 13, how long does the whole course take? We kind of went over this as well. It really depends on on your timeline, how comfortable you feel to take the exam. If you have done a clinical experiences research, so I would give yourself any time between 1 to 3 years before you apply for residency. Just considering obviously everyone is different, they all have their own timeline, their own speed, but on average I would give 1 to 3 years. Question 14, what is the benefit of working in the US? Is it similar to working at Singapore? Well, I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be similar working at Singapore. I've not worked at Singapore, so I don't think I would be able to touch a lot on that. But what I do know is that Singapore does follow similar, residency training programs as in the US. So the healthcare is very much close to the US. It's what I understand. And, don't quote me, but this is from just, my research, because I thought about it. I thought about after training, maybe I would want to move to Singapore and work. So what from my research is that they're pretty much similar in regards to training. Residency training and the work after. They used pretty much similar electronic medical records. That's all I know. But if you want to look into it for sure. But yeah, I don't know how similar it will be beyond that. What is the benefit of working in the USA? So the most important thing is training. At least for me, when I graduated med school, I wanted to get good training and possibly come back someday to Malaysia or Singapore, wherever, to be closer to home. So for me to I wanted to equip myself with good training, and US does offer that. If you're into research per se, if you're not so much into clinical practice, you're into research, you have that opportunity here. Again, if you're into clinical practice, you want to be strong at it, you have a lot of opportunities here. There's so many innovations, and basically you're able to train and practice modern medicine. So if that's what you look forward to, definitely you can get all of them here. So I think these are all great opportunities that you can get in the US. Question 15, what is an example timeline for writing the STEP exams and doing clerkship research while studying in the medical school? We kind of went over this as well. Like I said, if you're first year or second year, you can start working on your step 1 exams now itself, and move forward that way. If you're in your third year, fourth year, fifth year, it's never too late. You can still work on it. I know some people who do step 2 CK, clinical knowledge exam first, especially those on the third year, fourth year, fifth year, because that's what they're working on right now, right? So it's very close. The step 2 CK is very close to your third year to fifth year subjects. So some people do that first and then go back to step one, whatever works for you. Yeah, so like I said, give yourself 1 to 3 years at least after graduation. Let's see. Question 16, how hard is it to get a competitive specialty like surgery for IMGs? Well, I will not sugarcoat this. It is competitive. Surgery residency is competitive. You would need good, research background, good scores. Although step one is now a pass-fail exam. Good, strong rec letters and all that. Again, if you're really interested, I can help you connect with, many of our surgical residents who are Malaysians here. That way, maybe that will be more helpful. They'll be able to answer you better than I can. But yeah. Question 17, how to have a clinical exposure in USA after MBBS? Again, we touched base on this. Question 18, how to build a CV for USMLE? What problems can IMGs face in the US? What or how is the future of doctors in the US? Again, we spoke about how to build a CV, right? Problems IMGs can face. Some of the challenges would be like, kind of transitioning from, our curriculum to how, the step exams. So step exams is mostly, as you may already know, it's a multiple choice questions, right? They have over 300 questions. The exam is about 8 to 10 hours. So it's a very different testing skill that you need, as versus how we were trained in med school. So that's a transition, where you need to work on. Besides that, obviously just the whole challenge of getting a rotation, securing a good mentor throughout the process, that those are all challenges. But again, anytime you're coming out of your comfort zone, these are some of the challenges you will face regardless. You just have to keep an open mind, and as long as your interest is strong in it, you can get where you want to be. All right. Okay, moving forward. Question 19, what is the procedure to apply for PG in the US, and do we need to do internship in the same uni, or can it be done elsewhere? Again, we spoke about this, the whole process. So the second part of the question was, do we need to do internship in the same uni, or can it be done elsewhere? I guess what you mean would be like a US clinical experience, an observership, or an elective. Again, you can do it anywhere in the States. It doesn't have to be the same program that you intend to match to. It can be done anywhere. Question 20, after USMLE Part 3 exam, can I use that to pursue medicine in other countries? Yes, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, New Zealand accepts USMLE. So if you go through, the whole process of USMLE and then you want to apply to New Zealand, I think that's an option. Again, don't quote me, but from what I heard, what I've read through in the past, you can use USMLE scoring in New Zealand. Australia, I'm not 100% sure. I know they do have their own exam. I'm not 100% sure about Australia, but New Zealand, yes. And even Singapore. Singapore do accept USMLE, but I think the best would be for you to have some work experience in the US before you apply for, going back to Singapore. But yeah, for if you want to get into training per se, like residency training in the Singapore, that I'm not sure, but job opportunities are definitely there once you do USMLE and you have some training, like work experience over here. Yeah, you can definitely apply to Singapore. Question 21, when should I take step 1 USMLE, and is it better to do elective in the USA if it's possible? Again, we talked about when would be the ideal timeline, and definitely. So this is another thing that I missed. So when I was in 4th year med school, we have 1 year of 1 month. I wish it was a year. 1 month of elective opportunity. So I actually took that opportunity to do my elective in University of Miami in Florida. So if you have that, you still have the opportunity, that 1 month elective, if you want to do it in the USA as a med student, that is really, that will be a good, stepping stone. That would be a good opportunity for you to kind of, test the waters and see, is this what I want to do? Is this where I want to be, kind of a thing. so yes, it is. It is definitely, I highly encourage you guys to take up on that elective opportunity if you still have that time off. Question 22: within how many months of finishing my final professional exam of MBBS should I take my step 1 exam? Again, we went through this as well. If you're starting it after med school, give yourself at least a year to prepare for. I'm just talking about step 1 right now. Give yourself at least a year. But if you're progressing good, your scores are good within a few months, so you feel confident taking the exam, obviously go for it. Okay. But on average, from my experience, just with other friends, working with other friends, and so on and so forth, at least a year to 3 years to complete the whole process. Question 23: can you give any specific website or sources to prepare for USMLE? I did go over that, so that's that. 24: I'm currently in an MD undergrad program. Can I still further my residency in the States? And what is the difference in MBBS and MD undergrad? Yes, you can pursue residency in the States as long as you go through the process that we talked about. So in the States, there's actually not much difference. So it's kind of like an equivalent thing. Even though you're an MBBS, once you go through all this training, you're done with residency, MBBS is MD equivalent, if that makes sense. It's just in different parts of the countries, we have different titles, but in the end, they're kind of equivalent. So I don't think there's much difference, or shouldn't be any issue over there. Question 25: elective postings in the US. Again, we spoke about that. We even spoke about how you can attain those elective spots. The last question: for the match process of medical residency in USA, what are the experiences or achievements other than the USMLE results that you have? For example, research, clinical experience in USA. Again, we went in depth about that as well. Just have the mindset that score is not the only thing that matters when it comes to residency application. You have to focus on your overall CV, your letter of recommendations, your US clinical experiences, your research experiences. All these counts. You have to build the CV in order to get into a good residency spot. So that was the last question. With that, I hope it was a really useful session for you guys. Do you guys have any other questions that I can help answer?
I don't feel there's one question in the chat box.
Okay.
So the question is, how long can the gap be between step 1 and 2?
I'm not 100% sure if there is a certain timeline actually. Ideally, if you're taking it in the beginning of your med school, you can still do your step 1, and then 3-4 years later you can work on your step 2 CK. But if you're working on all these exams after your med school, obviously don't, the thing is, after your graduation, you have to be accountable for any time off that you're taking, even if that means preparing for exams. So then after graduation, you want to use your time wisely on how you want to proceed these, have a very solid plan. But if you're still in med school, I think you're fine. I don't think there's any set timeline where you need to take your step exams by. Yeah. But again, for better information, do check usmle.org. They always keep those updated, at least from my time, that there wasn't a strict timeline. I'm seeing a few more questions here as well. Do we get paid during residency? And if yes, how much is estimation? Yes, you definitely get paid during residency, and it really depends on which state you're in. Obviously, Northeast states, higher cost of living, you get paid a little bit more. Other states you get a little bit lesser, but again, it's sufficient to support yourself. Rough estimate, I will say somewhere between 55K to 65K. And each year you would have increment from your first year to second year to third year. So we'll just keep a range of 55 to 65, depending on which state you're in. And I'm saying that's per year, it's annual. Yeah. So is Money Impulse MBBS syllabus similar to USMLE? Is it hard to comprehend both of them if you're in med school? So there are some similarities, there are differences as well. Syllabus wise, we do touch everything, but it's a matter of, you know, like I said, step exams all about question MCQs and kind of like applying them. So it can be a little bit different on how you apply the knowledge that you learn. That is what you need to work on when it comes to USMLE. But you know, I felt like we covered most of the things, so it's not too far off. How would the pathway be if we take our exams during housemanship? Well, the pathway would still be the same. You know, you would still do whatever that was mentioned. Yeah, you just have to, you know, housemanship is a really busy time, right? You just have to, you know, find that dedicated time to work on exams and just preparing the whole thing. But the pathway would, you know, would still be the same. Okay,